Sounds good. First, thanks, Natan, for hosting all of this, and thanks, Trishan, for all of your work on agentic frameworks and presenting that. I definitely very much enjoyed that, and I will definitely have to hit you up afterwards as well. So I can share my screen. Perfect, thank you. I'm going to be talking today about Vecflow, right? So we are a legal AI platform, primarily for document review, drafting, and analysis. We work with law firms across the entire world at this point, some in North America, some in Europe, and some in Asia at this point. And I am their co-founder and CTO. And one of the things that we're really interested in is drafting, right? So this talk is going to be primarily on drafting. So we'll go overview of what we do, how the drafting flow works. We'll roll into a short demo, and then we'll talk about why drafting is hard, what the problem is here, and then how it works and how we are improving it as well. So without further ado, one of the things that we really focus on at Vecflow is one-click workflows. So these are, rather than chatting with something, right? We want to help a lawyer do a particular task with a dedicated workflow for that particular task. So we have workflows for chronology generation, for instance. That's if you have like thousands of pages of documents and you want to generate a chronology about how a particular client or plaintiff worked, that would be how you would do that. We also have like redline analysis. So that's like if you have a document that's been edited, you want to know how to summarize that document and what edits have been applied and what edits raise red flags, for instance. And this is all in the legal context. And of course, I worked previously at a very small law firm as well, and then I did some ML research at Columbia. But for this presentation, we'll focus on two things. One is drafting of clauses, and the second is drafting of end-to-end documents. Both of these are actually very challenging tasks, and both of these are used by lawyers across different practice areas. But primarily, the lawyers that we will be focusing on are lawyers who draft contracts. So this could be for mergers and acquisitions. This could be for like vendor agreements for companies. It could be for venture capital, for instance. All of these different practice areas and all these different lawyers, at the end of the day, their work product is a document that they send to a client. So that's a little bit of the context here. And we've thought about this flow as being we thought about this as how do you build a flow that does this accomplish for a user, right? I'm not sure how agentic it is, but at least it uses large language models, has a framework on top of them, and then is able to get user feedback. And so, for instance, a lawyer, whenever they are doing a particular task, whenever they're drafting a document, they use a prior precedent document and then they edit it with supporting documents. So that's the base document. The precedent document is your base document. The supporting documents are could be a term sheet, it could be a client email, it could be a transcript, it could be whatever type of information that you want. And then you also have external information. So that could be the internet, possibly, case law, possibly, and then something called SEC Edgar, which is the place where companies put their public filings. And the benefit of SEC Edgar over Google and case law is that it has particular clauses that lawyers would draft. So for instance, if you are drafting a merger agreement between two different companies, you want a termination clause. And that termination clause specifies the terms that one party or another party could terminate the agreement. And a lot of these clauses are either in precedent documents, that means in like a law firm's knowledge base, or they are part of part of SEC Edgar. So those are kind of the sources of information here on the left. We then generate a plan, right, of how we are going to edit the document, what type of information we have, and we sometimes go back to external information if we need to pull more information. And then we also incorporate user feedback. That's from the lawyer, right? And so after you do the plan, a lawyer is able to review the plan as well. And then we also are able to build a first draft at the end of the day. That's the next step there, once we verify the plan and add a little bit more information. But this is all at a very high level, right? I think it would be great to see a little bit how it works, right? And this is all in the context of like trying to apply these large language models on a day-to-day basis in a lawyer's workflow. So if I, in our application, I can click New Draft, and then I first want to select or upload my base documents. That's the document that I want to edit. This could be, in many people's context, maybe an essay they wrote or something like that. And so if you select their service agreement, so first, let me go over which documents we are doing right now, right? So we are going to try to edit our own service agreement with which has recitals at the beginning. It has some defined terms like that. It has various different clauses controlling various different applications of our application, right? So it contains limitations of liability. It contains term and termination of our agreement. It contains a publicity clause. It also contains some notices as well. And it also contains an exhibit. So this is the signing where people sign, and then this is the exhibit at the end, which goes over the specific like start dates and terms of our engagement with our clients. And then we have a playbook. So this is like how a lawyer would review a document. It says for particular clauses, any guidelines that a lawyer would apply for a particular clause. And so, for instance, for the publicity clause, we're going to focus on the publicity clause here. It says the provider has no automatic right to use the client's name, logo, or testimonials. And if you look at our contract, our service agreement, it does have a publicity clause. So this would not pass a playbook from a particular law firm. We also have an email from a given client that specifies what the certain features of this contract should, and this engagement should look like. And so a goal, right, is to edit this service agreement, create a first draft of this service agreement that incorporates all of the details from the playbook and from the email. And so in this case, of course, we selected as a base document that service agreement. And then as reference documents, we will select the playbook as well as the contract. So let's select the playbook as well as the email. Apologies. And then we can put in some general comments. So the general comments we are going to apply says you are reviewing and inserting information into a contract. The date should be February 9th. Let's change that to February 11th, I believe it is. And then the total contract size is 100,000. So that's an annual contract size. And then we're going to say use this playbook and then use this email. And then I'm going to click next. And now it's generating a plan. So this plan it looks over all of the information. It also tries to do a Google search for any information that it needs to look at, right? And then it generates a plan for how it's going to edit the document. And this is crucial because there's a lot of ambiguities in a particular document. So for instance, I did not specify whether or not the annual fee is paid upfront or split into installments. So I'm going to specify that it's full upfront. And then I'm also going to specify that the company's address should be inserted. And then the limitations of liability cap is exactly 1 million there. And then I'm going to click save. And then I can see the plan, how it's going to edit the document, and an overview, as well as the answers to the follow-up questions. And then you can always edit the answers. I'm going to click review. And then you can edit the prompt and how it's, and the entire thing about this. So I can edit this and say, I don't want to use this, I do want to use that, etc. Right? So I can save changes, and then I'm going to click submit. And then this is in the drafting process there. While that is going on, we can look at a kind of a previous version of this. So I think if I go right here, we can see that it's able to edit the document very precisely, right? So insert the date, insert the name of the company, insert the address, and it's also able to edit particular clauses, again, in a very precise manner. And it's able to delete the publicity clause as well, because the publicity clause does not satisfy the playbook. So I know that is a very detailed example, but just a little bit about how this process works. I'm going to go back to the slide deck here, and we can roll through a little bit about how this is challenging. So in the particular case I used, right, we kind of had too much information in many cases, right? So many legal documents are not templated, and often there is additional specific line information that you're given that isn't needed later on. Legal documents are also highly context dependent. Like code, legal documents, if you change one piece of them, you can change the entire thing. But unlike code, you can't run a legal document. You can't test a legal document, right? So there's no way to verify whether or not you did it correctly or not. And then there's a time versus quality aspect. The more time that you spend on the particular document, the better it's going to be. But on the other hand, the more time you spend, the less human in the loop you can get. And finally, Word documents are notoriously hard to deal with and can be extremely challenging to edit, partly because there is no precise mapping between XML, the underlying document format of docx files, and text. So those are some of the things that are hard about this. To solve the first issue, the ambiguous information, we try to corroborate as much information as possible between these documents. So we look at both the supporting documents and the base documents and some external information. And of course, we try to ask the lawyer directly if there are any ambiguities. And to solve the sort of context-dependent issue, we do clause-level drafting, which we also sell as a separate product. So we draft each clause directly, and then we consolidate up the information. And that's the next step, right? We can consolidate up the information between different clauses by using an LLM directly to, once you have the changes for each clause, you look and see, are there any overlapping issues? And are there any like things that one thing changes that then you have to change later on? And this means that we can very precisely edit a underlying Word document in ways that even a lawyer would have trouble doing during the time allotted. And I think that the final thing I have to say is I think we have internally benchmarked our product against a lawyer's work, comparing the two side by side, and we see that sometimes we actually outperform the lawyer on certain drafting tasks. So I think that's very exciting, and I think that we are very excited to launch this product to lawyers around the world. Finally, thank you guys so much, and thank you, Natan, for hosting this event. Feel free to reach out to anyone. I think we're always looking to hire people, both on the law side, but also on the engineering side. So my email is thomas@vecflow.ai. Feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Wow, what a remarkable presentation. That was really amazing.